Thank you very much for your patience. Now we would like to start the program committee session for Innovative City Forum. We would like to invite the program committee members, Professor Takenaka, Professor Ichikawa, Mr. Nanjo, and Mr. Ito. Please welcome them with a big round of applause. Mr. Takenaka, the floor is yours. His name was not right, so that's why I was laughing. Well, we had started this forum from yesterday. The day before we had the reception. This is the 6th forum. This is a closing session. Actually, tomorrow morning, we will have another session by the Japan Foundation, and we would also like to invite you to that session. But with the program committee, we have put these events together. We only have 20 minutes or so, but we would like to wrap up with the committee members. As you know, this is to think about the future of urban society with the Industrial Revolution 4.0. So with the big movement, we were wondering what we should do. What is the urban life is going to look like? What is going to happen to Tokyo? So from different capacities, many sessions were provided. And just to wrap up, we had an interactive brainstorming session just before this. Technology is important. MIT head, Mr. Ito, gave us a lot of good ideas. We had a lot of guest speakers with art and culture. Mr. Nanjo, the director of Mori Art Museum, participated. And to think about the urban planning, infrastructure, and also about Tokyo from that perspective, from Meiji University, and also the executive director of the Mori Memorial Foundation, Professor Ichikawa, hosted such session. So we had announced the ranking yesterday for cities, and which was on the media. Also, we want to touch upon that as well. But Mr. Ito, in your session, can you share with us the overview of the session that you hosted, and maybe share your impression? So before that, I want to talk about the meta layer. So I am spending most of my time in US, so I want to talk about the different angles between the two countries. So I just remembered because the names were switched. But in the US, Me Too and Time's Up, the power of women is really growing. I think in the latter part of discussion, we had a lot of females, but right now on the stage, we only have 4 males. And then there's a booing on the Twitter if this is in US. So females do not want to go to events where the panelists are all male. So I think we have to give that due consideration for the future events. So that's one thought I had. And also, both in Japan and US, I think there are different perspectives. So in my session, there was a comment about reviewing capitalism from different perspectives. In Japan, with the aging society, the atmosphere is really different compared to that of the US. In the US, labor is a big issue as opposed to in Japan. And also, the perspective on AI is really different. So that's what I felt as a difference between the two countries. But all the countries believe that capitalism is good, but there are ways to control that. And that also came up with a global environmental issue. And in Kathy's presentation, it was really powerful. And I think in the US, it's more visible because we have more immigrants. Within the country, there's a difference in the social status. And for the countries in the south, those were colonies. People in this capacity, those kind of people exist both inside and outside the country. So how does that issue needs to be addressed? I think that will be one of the big agendas that's talked about the top people, like female or gender disparity and also general disparity. It's a big issue in Japan. We talk about what do we need to do about Tokyo, so that's a different perspective.
もう一つ
In addition, because I'd like to have a discussion from the middle layer, or because at the beginning you had these kind of roles and you are separating those areas, for example, like technology, and everybody is playing their roles within that arena. However, well, because following the discussion, because everything is intertwined and therefore it is very difficult to ask the technology and from the technology people, like talking about Elon Musk, well, because the Silicon Valley has been created and because they didn't give a thought about art and also the society, and now it's becoming a kind of having this kind of result, and I believe that was really a problematic issue in the past. Well, talking about the sessions, so because I had participated with Mr. Nanjo about the education, and because I believe all the topics are related beginning from yesterday within the education. And in the session, it was not really being discussed. However, it's related to present, while talking about the future and how the economy and how the companies and the business entities and the works are going to go, and also the contents of education is being changed, and also the society, and also how AI will be involved. Until now, it was a kind of science fiction story, but now it's becoming more practical and it's happening in the real world. And it's happening in reality, and therefore these kind of topics are becoming so familiar. So that was impressive to me. So, because I have joined together with Nanjo-san, and therefore permit me to say, talking about yesterday's discussion. So the theme was too vague and also too huge for me. We're talking about pursuit of happiness, and you have had a discussion about definition of happiness. Well, because in the latter part there was a discussion about evolution theory, and everybody is trying to develop. However, it depends on the standard of happiness, and therefore the raison d'etre and also the work style varies according to individual. And this is my personal conclusion. Well, because happiness globally and the value is going to change in the future, and how the capitalism and talking about the leadership is going to change. Therefore, as a result, so that, because listening to all the sessions, it is not, because it's related to environmental and also the society, and every discussion is really reflecting to the current environmental and societal change. Thank you very much for your comment. Well, at the beginning, because in Japan, because we cannot really have a sense of reality from the Japanese viewpoint and what's happening globally. So tomorrow you're going back to Boston, and therefore we hope that we are able to have you as a guest next time. Nanjo-san, please. Well, talking about art, because originally this event, when I proposed the idea, because I wanted to use the term creative Davos, because in Japan it was a kind of mass production era. However, in Japan we wanted to have an image that Japan is a creative society, and that the society we can produce so many creative people, and the center is Tokyo. Well, because at the end, that will be concentrated in Tokyo, and therefore this should be a venue to talk about the creativity. And the creative is really is a huge notion, and every people from different channel is coming from to this, and therefore by gathering those people, we are able to create the power within the society. And this time, this art science session, and there are 6 breakout sessions. And within those 6 breakout sessions and looking at all the title, for example, environment is related to architecture, art is related to biotechnology, trust is really related to the blockchain. However, well, because it will ultimately come to the human relationship and talking about very impressive future. So because they're having so many discussion about the data, so data can read everything, and also because how, for example, and there was a discussion about how because there was a wrap up, and there is a diversity, and also there is a love and also passion for the products, and there was such kind of discussion and talking about the future of human being physically. For example, there were Chris-san had mentioned, because Chris-san and Miss Chris is having a kind of artificial leg. And there was such kind of discussion in the breakout session. However, in summary, well, because now there are so many diverse others. Well, because in the past, in Japan, for example, when we say other, that means a foreigner. Now there are so many people, and also so many people who is not really related to yourself. And now, well, because talking about oneself, and it's now changing rapidly, and also of course there is a sea change within the infrastructure, and also the decision making basis for the society is changing, and we cannot really decide what will be the standard for the decision making process. Well, in the previous meeting, or because in the modern era, or because of the change of the modern era, Japan had changed drastically. For example, there was a steam locomotive, and also there is aircraft. But now we cannot really see the changes happening in the society. Therefore, it's invisible. And because of that, we are not able to create a new standard. And there are so many variety of new standards. And therefore, well, because every individual is going to go to a certain society where it's comfortable for that person to live. So it's a diverse world. And ultimately, so we need to think about the happiness. So because I hope that I don't need to summarize the discussion. However, one thing for sure that I would like to say is that, well, because the topic is why innovation is there for talking about the economic development when there is economic growth. So we need to think about the result of the economic growth, whether the economic growth will become prosperity to everybody, so the people will be retrieved from the poverty and they are not going to starve. However, what will be the end of the tunnel? So we need to think about that, and also at the same time we need to pursue the economic growth. So it's same for the technological advancement. For example, maybe we are able to get a certain result from the technological achievement. However, we need to ask ourselves whether the direction is right or not. So we need to have this kind of full understanding. So we need to have that kind of basis of idea. And therefore, the thinking is being proposed by Innovative City Forum. However, we are not going to get to the conclusion. So every person needs to have a kind of thinking. Well, because So Nanjo-san, you mentioned it's really difficult. So however, you have set the topic for the Innovative City Forum, and you have decided such a challenging topic for the forum. So because you have mentioned about the diverse others, and now we are facing a different and also the diverse sense of values. So Ichikawa-san, please. Well, one thing that I have mentioned, because Ito-san, you mentioned about the technology, and Nanjo-san mentioned about the city and Tokyo, and well, because this is a sixth forum, so maybe we need to go to other people's sessions. So of course, I do understand that you are happy, and of course I can talk about the happiness. However, from the urban development plan, well, because we need to materialize the happiness, and therefore maybe we don't need to separate the topics. So this is a kind of reporting system. Therefore, so talking about my session, we had 3 pre-seminars, and this is the main venue. And in the first time, we had a discussion about the buildings in the area, and also we had a second meeting, and also in the third time, we have selected 4 venues, and we have invited the developers for those unique buildings. And also at the end, we have invited Mr. Atkins, who is a professional of traveling. And this is a very difficult challenge, and everybody is talking about Tokyo. However, we don't have a sense of community. So, well, because there is a tradition that we need to think from the history, well, because there is a strong impact of Edo to the Tokyo city, and not only in the urban development, for example, when they are going to, well, because if people, it's going to touch other, or because they are going to apologize. So that is the culture of Edo period. So not all the people, some of the people had attended my session. So about the Edo era, we have invited Professor Ito to talking about the Edo era, and also they have made a comparison of the current Tokyo and Edo. And Kuroda-san is a professional in order to search about the Edo period. And well, because for example, he's going to find, because this person is going to find some seaport in Edo period. And the third person is Azuma-san, who is an architect. And he is an architect in designing Hoshinoya, the very famous hotel in Japan, and talking about the Tokyo identity. And now we have invited the Mr. Atkins. Well, because Mr. Atkins is a foreigner, however, he is fluent in Japanese. However, he has a perspective of a foreigner. Well, because Mr. Atkins had written a novel about making a tourism as a center of the Japanese government. Well, because, however, the Japanese government is not seeking from the foreigner's perspective to look at the charm of the Tokyo and also Japan. But what I thought is that maybe we think about the identity. However, from the foreigner's perspective, they have the different idea. Well, because Japan would like to become a tourism nation in order to get the profit out of that. So talking about Kyoto, the people in Kyoto is going to pursue the long tradition. Well, because there is this kind of sense within the Japanese people. And talking about the Tokyo identity, whether there is a Tokyo identity or not. And this is the theme that we have had a discussion from the first forum. And I hope that we are able to have a discussion about the Tokyo identity. So we would like to have a discussion based on the culture in the next forum. So we would like to have a very good collaboration next year. So Ichikawa-san have mentioned about the integration of culture and technology, and it took 5 years in order to have a forum based on that topic. So, because in the city ranking, well, because in comparison to London and New York, we don't have a good attractiveness for the tourism. So I believe tourism will be the issue for Tokyo. So because I was a moderator of that session, and that was a very difficult session. And there are so many interesting comments from Mr. Atkins. In Japan, they talk about the hospitality and omotenashi. However, there is a global hospitality ranking, and the lowest ranks the France. However, France accommodates so many tourism globally. So we need to face that kind of reality. So that was very interesting. Now we are running out of time. In closing, I would like to invite all the panelists to give us a comment. The breakout sessions were so impressive. So what will be the next agenda that we need to discuss? And this is a program committee, so we hope that we can continue this forum for coming 10 years. So next agenda, so maybe that will be the Tokyo agenda, or maybe we have had a discussion of agenda of having a discussion about the expansion of the human body. Therefore, we would like to have the last comment from the panelists, please.
よろしいでしょうか。はい。
Starting with Mr. Ito. So this kind of forum is interesting, and there are a lot of things that we want to do, but how to put that into shape is difficult. We tried to eliminate the political elements, but including political issues. So let's take them all on. How do we make that happen? When we make that decision, ideas are not enough. We have to have a force to put them into action. And I think that's also an important thing. And it's related to design. And for issues that's more complicated, just making decisions cannot solve problems like environmental issues. It's not just one single issue. So how do we design that into a more pragmatic solution is one thing that we need to address. Yes, as a policy researcher, I can understand that. And it's also surprising that it came out from your mouth. Implementation, how to realize, should be incorporated into our exercise. Also, how to realize, we have to set an objective or goal. That's what I want to pay attention to. So where are we headed? And what I'm thinking is that I think there was an important model in the Edo period, because people in Edo, there was a disparity, but they all really enjoyed culture. So the people in the lower class are enjoying haiku, and there was ukiyo-e. And if you think about that, enjoying this moment, I think everyone from Edo period were pursuing that. And it wasn't just simply aspiring for economic prosperity, it's a change in the mindset. People were sharing the agenda of how can we enjoy this moment. Unless we have some common thing, we have to chase the issues endlessly in a vicious circle. So like Professor was saying, maybe if we go back to the Edo model, we can propose something very novel to the world. Also, Zakaya Taichi says that the 1/3 of Edo period was the economic development, and then there weren't much development thereafter, because in a matured society, people will have to enjoy under that given circumstance. And I think that led to a nationwide peace. But we now all talk about Industrial Revolution 4.0, and we have to think about what kind of stability we are headed for. Ichikawa-san, in Edo, people try to enjoy the subtle happiness, and that's how the Edo government tried to control the society. And recently, there was a magazine that talked about the Tokyo, which was envisioned in the comic The Astro Boy. and I was asked to assess that. So the comic was aspiring a future dream, and we are always pursuing a dream in the future. It's a utopia where we want to realize our dream. So we have to think about the future of Tokyo, future of cities, what we want to create, and what we try to aspire in such dreams. I see. Thank you very much for all those inputs. I hope that you have enjoyed the forum. We also have another session tomorrow morning, but thank you very much for your great support and contribution for the last 2 days. And we were able to have a very constructive, informative session. So thank you for the audience and also for those in the Mori group and also the supporters and the speakers and the participants. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude. Thank you to all of you. Thank you very much. And please give a big round of applause to the speakers on the stage. Mr. Takenaka, Professor Ichikawa, Mr. Nanjo, and Mr. Ito. Thank you very much to all the speakers.